If you are thinking about conceiving within the next few years and you want to prepare your body for a healthy pregnancy and have the potential for that to happen as naturally as possible, here is everything you need to know. My name is Maddie Cunningham. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, and functional medicine specialist. And today I'm going to be going over one of my favorite topics, preconception work, that can help set you up for a healthy pregnancy and a healthy future generation of children. A lot of people don't even realize this, but there's so much that you can do to help prepare your body for pregnancy within 6 months to a year, even a couple years before trying to conceive. And the goal isn't just to be able to conceive naturally. It's that your body becomes a really safe space. We have adequate nutrients, a regulated nervous system in order to create a healthy future generation of children. This is so important in the chronic illness space. When we're seeing children at younger ages struggle with certain illnesses like diabetes, autoimmune diseases, nervous system dysregulation, and even things like ADHD. I'm going to walk you through what I consider to be essential testing for a pre-fertility journey and what we recommend for all of our clients who are in this space. But before getting into that, let's go over why pre-fertility testing really matters. Pregnancy increases your metabolic demand. This means that our nutrients, our detox capabilities, our hormones all have to be in a really regulated state prior to pregnancy to remain that healthy state throughout. Your body will use your nutrient reserves first. So deficiencies going into a pregnancy really matter. It's almost impossible for things like iron to be optimized once you're pregnant if you were going into it deficient. Your microbiome status, cortisol levels, circadian rhythm, and your toxic load dramatically impact pregnancy and fertility outcomes. And some infections like Lyme disease or some toxins like mercury, for example, are able to cross the placental barrier during pregnancy. So understanding each one of these facets of health is so important to go into a fertility journey feeling fully informed and fully in line with your body. It is not about fear, and nothing has to be perfect, but it's setting your body up for success before it goes down a really major transformation. So now let's get into the testing that we recommend. First and foremost is the heavy metal testing. You want to start with this first. We really want to understand what heavy metals are present in the body at which levels. This is particularly important for really corrosive heavy metals like lead, mercury, aluminum, and cadmium. These heavy metals have been shown in various studies to really impact immune function, mitochondrial health, hormone health, and thyroid health, which is absolutely essential to a healthy pregnancy. And like we previously mentioned, there are certain heavy metals like mercury that have the ability to cross the placenta and even be transferred down 5 generations. So it might not even be something that you accumulated in your lifetime. It might be something that was passed down to you through generations before you, especially our grandparents who were exposed to things like mercury far more often. There are different ways to test for heavy metals, but we tend to stick with the safest option and the least invasive, which is a hair sample. You take a sample of hair from close to your scalp, and hair samples show what the body is actively trying to push out through the hair tissue. There are a lot of companies using blood testing to evaluate heavy metals, but this can be really problematic and often really inaccurate. Your body will store heavy metals in certain tissues because they're really corrosive and really inflammatory. Your body doesn't want them in systemic circulation. So unless your heavy metal exposure was recent or the levels are overwhelmingly high in the body, you're not going to typically see it come up on a blood test. And I want to be really clear, the goal is not to have an aggressive detoxification process right before a pregnancy. The goal is to see this early so that we can get heavy metals out of the body through a detoxification process well before you want to try to conceive. So the body gets rid of the inflammation and the toxicity. Now, what are studies showing that heavy metals can do for pregnancy and for the development of children? At this point, we have several studies indicating that even small amounts of lead can lead to neurological-based issues. Elevated levels of mercury have been found to affect fetal development and maternal fatigue. And elevated levels of aluminum, which is really common, are linked to immune dysregulation. So the implications of evaluating for heavy metals are really important, not only for the mother, but for the future child. Next, we want to look at a full blood work panel. When we're looking at blood work panels for our clients, we look at a very comprehensive panel, but at the very least, here are the things you want to examine. A CBC, or complete blood count, to get an idea of oxygen carrying capabilities, our white blood cell count, and how our red blood cells are looking. We want to address ferritin and iron, making sure iron levels and iron stores are adequate. We want to make sure our B12 and our folate are in good shape. Our vitamin D is looking great, which is an essential hormone in pregnancy. our CRP, our inflammation marker, is low, our hemoglobin A1C, fasting glucose, but especially fasting insulin, are all in optimal ranges, so our blood sugar is stable. And a full thyroid panel, but especially with thyroid antibodies. The presence of thyroid antibodies alone has been shown to increase miscarriage risk. So if that's a factor that's going on, we want to know about it early. Pregnancy is going to demand optimal levels of these nutrients, not just within normal range. So we want to be sure we're examining these levels from a functional lens to make sure that you are in a great place before entering your fertility journey. Next, we want to examine your cortisol. Everyone has heard the implications that stress can have on pregnancy, but I want to be able to show you a little bit of a different reason why it's important too. Yes, we want our body in a relaxed state in order to be able to conceive, but it's very important to have adequate levels of cortisol, that they're not too low, especially in the third trimester. In the third trimester, cortisol dramatically raises. It's why a lot of women can struggle with insomnia when they get further along in their pregnancy. This is an intentional response from the body. The elevated levels of cortisol are very important for fetal lung development. So if your cortisol levels are too high, you might have a difficult time conceiving at the beginning of pregnancy. But if your cortisol levels are too low going into pregnancy, which is far more common than people think it is, we might struggle in that third trimester. So it's really important to examine a salivary cortisol test that examines your cortisol curve, your cortisol pattern throughout the day, to make sure you're staying in within those optimal ranges. The next test is what I consider the last essential test in our planning, which is a gut microbiome test. The gut microbiome of the mom becomes the baby's foundational gut microbiome, especially when there is a vaginal-based birth. The baby passes through the vaginal canal, being exposed to the vaginal biome, which is heavily influenced by the gut microbiome. So having a healthy, balanced gut microbiome is absolutely essential for the initial exposure of bacteria to a new baby. When we look at a stool sample test, we're looking at different bacterial levels, opportunistic bacteria and infections, fungal and candida overgrowths, digestion absorption markers, and different inflammatory markers in the gut. Doing this ahead of time gives us a lot of time and space to shift the gut microbiome through supplements, diet, and lifestyle to get the digestion feeling very, very supportive. This can make a huge difference in children's immune systems moving forward. Now, the last test is optional, but if you have symptoms of chronic illness, I highly, highly recommend it. For some of our clients, we do recommend a chronic infection panel to test for the presence of Lyme and co-infections like Bartonella. Crazily enough, Lyme disease has the ability to cross the placental barrier, and it can be responsible for miscarriages that women have early on in pregnancy. So if you are someone who's having recurrent miscarriages, which is such a heartbreaking process, I encourage you to look at a chronic infection panel to see if this might be something that's impacting you. But for anyone else who's new to a fertility journey, if you've had chronic health issues, you've had symptoms for over a year, I do recommend doing this test. That way we can address the infection before a fertility journey, optimize your own immune system, and we prevent these transfers happening to fetuses. Doing it before pregnancy also allows for a lot more treatment options and for it to be safer. So this was a lot of information. How do we put this all together? Start testing at the absolute minimum 6 months before you want to try to conceive. I try to push people even to 1 to 2 years before they want to conceive. Some of these processes like heavy metals and the gut microbiome, and especially chronic infections, take time to heal. So if you're thinking about a fertility journey down the line, the sooner you get started, the better. While focusing on maternal health is so important because that is the vessel in which the fetus is going to grow, it's also exceptionally important to note that all of these tests apply to men as well. Things like heavy metals, high stress, high body burdens, and toxic loads can really affect sperm quality, making miscarriages common. Up to 50% of the reasons why people have miscarriages are from men. So this is something that you can do in partnership together to work on your health. This isn't just about being able to conceive. Although it is lovely when it can happen naturally and with ease, this is also about setting children up for really healthy bodies and immune systems and hormones in the future. It's not about perfection, it's just about knowledge and planning so you're able to take a fully informed step walking into a fertility journey. If this was helpful for you, feel free to press subscribe. I'm going to continue to be deep diving into different topics, especially in the chronic illness space. I'll see you soon.